So I feel like it's important at this point in the game to say that it's Wednesday, July 29th at 3:05 p.m. because who knows? Things are changing so quickly. We have had a crazy week here in Wisconsin politics. We had two big polls come out this week. One of them was just a couple hours ago. That was the latest Marquette poll. We had the debate last night, the one and only live televised debate between the Democratic primary candidates for governor. Dan, I feel like you've been at all the things, getting the firsthand experience. What do you feel like what do you want to talk about first? What's most on your mind? The most recent poll from this morning?
I mean, I'm still thinking about the debate a lot. I'm still working on my write-up from the debate. And yes, as you mentioned, I was there in person for the lone debate last night, sitting in the balcony with the rest of the assembled media. And I was back there today at Marquette University Law School for the poll release, which showed, I would say, some pretty similar numbers to the poll release from State Navigate and UpNorthNews and Main Street Action released yesterday, with Francesca Hong in a huge lead in this primary. And, I think on the debate, one of my least favorite takes that people have on the debate is that a debate doesn't matter. I really despise that type of take. And I know Scott Walker made that take. A few other folks did too. And I think, we should absolutely welcome any opportunity to hear from these candidates and see them in a setting like this on this stage and hear from them directly. It was a 1 hour debate with 5 candidates. They tried to cover a lot of ground. They did cover a lot of ground. They missed a couple things, but I think Matt Smith and Jaron Jordan did a terrific job. Marquette always is just a phenomenal host for these types of events. I've been running around like crazy trying to, go from the balcony and the debate down to the spin room, home to write, back to Marquette today to write about the poll. And so I'm just spinning right now. The spin room is in my head at the moment.
You're just all over that law school. You're basically like the Elle Woods of Wisconsin at this point.
That's what people call me. Yeah, that's right.
I would have cast Lyerly in that role, but yeah, I could see it working for you. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess. Okay, so let's start with the debate, and then we'll get into the polls a little bit. From a lot of what I've seen online, I think a lot of people have similar commentary, but there definitely have been a few differences. I saw some people sharing their rankings of how they thought folks did. I agree with you. I think the moderators did great. I understand the frustration that it wasn't really a real debate where the candidates got to go back and forth at each other, but I don't know how you would have done that with 5 candidates. Like, it's a traditional debate is 2 people, right? And this just didn't lend itself to that. I also wished it was longer at first, but then the fact that they did pack so much into an hour, I feel like they covered a lot of ground, and a lot of undecided voters can and should go watch it. It makes it like a nice digestible piece. And I think if somebody is just starting to tune in now and didn't know a lot about some of the candidates, they'll hopefully get a good feel for them. Pat, what were some of your biggest takeaways from the debate?
Well, I guess starting with the format that, and again, I thought that the guys did a terrific job. I certainly wouldn't call it a debate. I would call it a lightning round version of Upfront with 5 guests. And that is no dig on Upfront. It is essentially, it's become the Meet the Press of Wisconsin politics. So now you have 5 guests at a time. You ask them 8 questions, roughly, plus some closing statements and things like that. So we've got 40 different snippets to go through where they do or don't answer the questions. But Kristin Lyerly, who's having some tech issues, otherwise she'd be the first one to tell us what she all texted us afterwards last night. Really? No questions about healthcare? And she was right. I went back and looked through the transcript, and a couple of people mentioned healthcare in passing, but there were no direct questions there. There was a couple of Madison-Milwaukee-centric questions about the police killing in Madison, the voucher school impact in Milwaukee. In both cases, the candidates, to their great credit, turn those answers into more statewide issues, the statewide voucher program and funding local governments statewide for public safety and evidence-based programs that reduce crime. So on the whole, the moderators and the candidates did a really nice job. I won't call it thorough, but I will say that if anybody is not up to speed on the race and just spends 60 minutes watching that debate, I feel like they'll come away knowing that there's one or two people they would vote for.
Mm-hmm. I agree. And I thought it was like, I just kept feeling like we are lucky to, like, there's so many competent people on the stage that care so much about our state. And that really came through. So I hope anybody who's just tuning in is watching this being like, yeah, maybe they have a favorite or two, but hopefully they're feeling like, you know what? I feel like we'd be in good hands with any of these candidates. And I feel like that is something that's going to be important, keeping in mind as we do move forward, as all the people who have been really involved in this. Because, Dan, a question I have for you is, between the debate and looking at the recent polls, and all of the data is trending towards Fran. It seems sort of all but inevitable at this point that she will get the nomination, unless something else crazy happens, which it could. This has been a crazy cycle. At what point does it hurt more that, like, some of the candidates are still trying to differentiate each other versus supporting that notion and building confidence for anybody who has maybe been hesitant because of what they've said?
Well, first, to your point on just like the field at large, I think you're right. This debate did demonstrate that this is a really qualified field. And I think amid the chaos and tumultuous news cycles of the past few weeks, I think that got obscured a bit. But I think getting to hear directly from these candidates reminded us that this is a really qualified field, and any of them have a strong case to be a good governor, certainly a better option than Tom Tiffany. But obviously, Francesca Hong is the story right now. And as you found in the poll from UpNorthNews and State Navigate yesterday, from the Marquette poll today, she's got a double-digit lead over every other candidate in the field. Not just a double-digit lead. Like, it's beyond that at this point.
Like more than the rest of the field combined.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so, I was surprised in the debate that she kind of came away unscathed. I think a couple reports from this morning just noted that no candidate really directly criticized her at this point.
Mm-hmm.
There were some subtle jabs and some, a few comments in the spin room about, various things here and there. But even in the public safety questions, which I do believe is Hong's weakest issue, the other candidates didn't really take that opportunity to really go directly at her and criticize her past positions on defunding or abolishing the police, or her positions on prisons, or the variety of things that we've seen become controversial statements of hers throughout the course of this campaign. And again, I think she's clearly in the lead at this point, but I think that is her weakest issue. But I don't think any of the candidates made any direct criticisms of her positions there, which just says to me that it's really a win by default for Francesca Hong, because she did not face that direct criticism. I feel like she faced a little bit more of that in the spin room from some of the reporters, including some of the national reporters who were there questioning her about some of those statements. We've seen some of those clips going around today. I was standing behind some of those folks as they were taking those videos. And so I think that is going to be a persistent issue, but the fact that no other candidates really took it to her on that issue, I think made it so that she won on that issue.
Funny that you say that about the national media, going harder on her than the candidates did, because the same can be said for the moderators. The only tough questions she really, fielded, or the toughest questions out there, were for her from the moderators, who asked her about, the Democratic Socialists of America, DSA. Do you support abolishing the Senate, abolishing the police? And then on the Madison police killing, where they said, you right away said this was an execution. Is this what you're going to be like as governor, essentially shooting from the lip? And she gave a really good answer about how a governor has to have a much more responsible use of the microphone. But for where she was at the time, she was calling it as she saw it. But yeah, the other candidates, I think in part because they already anticipate Tom Tiffany's going to make these attacks. And I mean, honest to God, not one of those four other Democrats thinks that a Governor Hong is going to introduce a budget with $0 for police and prisons. That's absolutely ridiculous. And so they don't want to be caught, being silly, because that's exactly what Tiffany and the Republicans are going to do, Kate, as far as what I see going forward.
Yeah. And I think, thinking about what maybe they could have been, and maybe it would have gotten her to push on some answers a little further. I do think it was probably smart that they did that. I think it's kind of a lose-lose situation. I think it could have looked bad if any one of them started attacking her because she is in the lead. She has so much grassroots support. All the other ones, even though they're fighting over who is the least establishment of all, are all somewhat. It's so funny, this establishment thing. These are all politicians in Wisconsin that are all part of the establishment in some way, shape, or form. So it's interesting to see them kind of throw that back and forth. But I do think it could have gone south for them afterwards if they had tried to attack her. But then again, I feel like they have nothing to lose at this point. And so I'm kind of curious. I haven't been online much today, or at least since the Marquette poll came out. Have any of them released any statements on that, or what? Here's my question. It's actually sort of a two-parter, but about the other candidates. What do you think, Dan, is next for Mandela and Crowley, who sort of were neck and neck? It looks like Mandela has taken the lead over Crowley. I don't know if I'm interpreting that correctly. And then what would you say is next for Joel and Kelda?
Yeah, it was interesting. The only real jabs that any candidate made over the course of the debate, I noted right at about the 50-minute mark in the debate, nobody had really gone at each other at all. And then I think Mandela made a couple jabs at Crowley about the establishment or whatever it is. There seems to be no love lost between the two of them, it seems like. And so...
Is that sarcasm? Are you being sarcastic?
No, I
No.
I don't. It doesn't seem like they particularly like each other right now in this race. I mean, they're I think competing for a similar path to victory. And as I think the State Navigate poll really articulated that Evers endorsing Crowley hurt Mandela more than anybody. And instead of consolidating the field to find some sort of alternative to Francesca Hong, I think that move hurt Mandela more than it hurt Hong. And so, I think we saw a couple of goofy posts and the back and forth with the social feeds and whatever else between Crowley and Barnes. So I think there's some of that. I think it was for Brennan and for Kelda Roys. I thought both of them did very well in the debate overall, like if you're just zooming out. But it's just, it's a big field. Not everybody can win, and they don't appear to be winning. And so I like both of them. I've interviewed both of them. I think Joel has such a wealth of experience running big organizations. I think Kelda, in the interviews that I've had with her, knows state government inside and out and knows how to pull these levers of power in state government, perhaps better than any other candidate in the field. But their campaigns just haven't resonated. For whatever reason, they haven't been able to meet the moment. And that's just the reality of it. And they continue to poll very low in both of the polls that were released this week. I frankly don't really see a path for either of them. And I also don't see any chance of consolidation in the field. I think, I was talking to both of them in the spin room for a little bit, and I didn't really get the sense that either of them would be dropping out or supporting another candidate or whatever it might be.
Why that is? They know the one path forward for them. They see three candidates above them who all have these flaws of either saying things in their past or setting up Twitter accounts in the past, or, in Sarah Rodriguez's case, a financial blow up. So if you're Joel or Kelda, normally, yes, you'd think about getting out by now. But from what we've seen in this race already and what about the people ahead of them, there's still 13 days left, which is still an eternity for one more revelation about, something Fran did or Mandela did or Crowley did. And suddenly they've got new life. Again, that's not typical. This has not been a typical year, so they have no incentive whatsoever at this point to drop out, because even if their 4% isn't going to do anything for Crowley or Barnes to catch up to Fran Hong, so they may as well stay all the way so that they can not be called a quitter, say they ran all the way through the tape at the finish line, and then figure out what they're going to do next after this.
Yeah, if I'm Crowley, especially, I'm like, guys, I can't I can't drop out again. So if somebody's got to drop out, it's got to be somebody else. And I do feel like, as you were talking, I'm like, I feel like somebody should maybe, who is smarter than me, should proactively look into the laws of what happens if we need to make a replacement during the general. Just putting that out there in case there's a situation where we need to understand how Wisconsin law would treat that. But yeah, I thought it was great. I thought everybody did great. I consistently got a question from people who were really impressed with Kelda, and just wondering why she hasn't been polling. And what I want to respond to those people with sometimes is like, well, how many people have you talked to in real life about her and why you're supporting her? At this point, when, not that many people are tuned in, word of mouth is so important, and talking to people and clearly that has been the case with Fran. And I think the other candidates have just been running more traditional campaigns. They're calling up the funders, they're doing call time, they're on TV, they're doing the ads, but they're not as much pushing that community conversation that Fran's campaign has. And so I think it's just a testament to once we get to the general, like, it is very important for people to talk to people they know, a lot of people they know, and make sure everybody gets out to vote. Kristin's back. Can we hear you?
Dr. Lyerly.
Hey guys, how you doing?
Before we move on from the debate and get into the polls, I know you were upset that they didn't bring up healthcare. What would you have wanted them to ask, or what were you looking to get more clarity on from the candidates?
Yeah, I guess just, as a doctor, also a patient, which everybody in Wisconsin is at some point in our lives, it would have been great to address the affordability issues with healthcare. And I'm frozen again, aren't I?
Oh, no. Apparently, we need affordability of internet in some of these places around Wisconsin, too. So
she's in Milwaukee. That's the thing.
That's
Our rural girl.
In Madison or Milwaukee is where sometimes I get the worst coverage. It's insane. We need infrastructure in the state.
Well, Pat, do you know what she was hoping to hear more? I wonder if they didn't touch on healthcare because it was so time boxed. That is such a complicated topic. And frankly, it is. I'm still a little bit confused between the minor differences between the candidates' platforms and even what is possible anyways. I don't know.
Well, I'll read Dr. Lyerly's tweet from this morning, at least, where she said, last night's Wisconsin governor debate, 5 candidates, 1 hour, nothing on healthcare. Not reproductive care, not rural hospital closures, not measles, food safety, or public health readiness. Wisconsin families are living these threats now. Whoever wins owes us a real plan. It's a great point. And I think the salience of healthcare as an issue, especially now in contrast with Tom Tiffany having voted for the big ugly bill for healthcare rising as a major issue. We had that word cloud from the State Navigate poll yesterday that it identified affordability. It talked about data centers. Kind of the hidden third one there is healthcare in a lot of ways. And I thought, that to me seemed like the big miss from the debate and an issue I think we needed to be hearing more about. And so I think Dr. Lyerly is absolutely right. And when we get her back into the group chat here, eventually we'll have to give her a platform to monologue on that one. But hey, we're all trying our best here in the Wisconsin Politics group chat. We're trying something new. So, some things might go wrong, some things might go differently, but hey, we're all doing our best here to bring new voices to the Wisconsin political media landscape.
I know that she said one of her personal pet projects is a Substack that is a very thorough review of where each candidate stands on various healthcare issues. So I would say watch that space, the Dr. Kristin Lyerly Substack, and I'm sure we'll see something out of her that really encapsulates all of those issues that she talked about and more, because that is real life for so many Wisconsin families. Even my own, being married to a physician here who practices rural medicine and who sees the crisis up here every day firsthand. And yeah, granted, it's being made a lot worse by, the Trump administration and RFK and Dr. Oz and all the whole ship of fools that we got out there. But there are things that, a state government could be doing as well. And I want to know if the candidates are going to prioritize it or not.
Yeah, I agree. And actually, I was just looking at my notes that I was like furiously taking last night during the debate. And Fran had gotten, or a couple of them had gotten a question about you're going to need to work with the legislature and both sides of the aisle, which even if Democrats get a trifecta, not all Democrats are Fran Hong Democrats. There's still going to need to be a lot of working together to figure things out. And they had asked her, what areas can you work with the other side of the aisle on? And actually, healthcare was one of the things she mentioned there, because she has met with a lot of Republicans across the state, and presumably they are also struggling with that. And it is a priority for everybody, anybody meets, regardless of party, unless you're a billionaire, I guess. I don't know any, unfortunately.
Right. And to your point on the legislature, too, it's just like, even if Democrats do win a majority in the assembly, I've seen it rated as a toss-up by some of the experts, it's going to be like a 1 or 2 seat Democratic majority. And
by the way, spoiler alert, there's not going to be a new era in this. If Republicans hold the assembly, for example, and Democrats take the Senate, there's not going to be no gathering in the rotunda singing Kumbaya. The Republicans will take whatever Democrat wins the governor's seat and throw everything back at them. You will say, "Oh, Robin Vos isn't here, but I can still see him here someplace." That is the safest prediction that I can make. There won't be any kind of let's do something right out of the gate to show that it's a new era. Absolutely not. These communists and Marxists, no matter how reasonable the proposal may be, these communists and Marxists want to burn Wisconsin down, and we're not going to let them. And I know that's going to feed some of the cynicism about voters. It shouldn't. It should feed the desire to make sure that the Assembly, as well as the Senate, takes those people that have been in charge for 16 years and kicks them out the door.
Yeah, which is a great plug, real quick, before we move on to the polls, that it is very important that you vote in those down ballot races too. You will definitely have a state assembly seat on your ballot, and half of you will have a state senate on your ballot. So if you haven't voted yet, go to myvote.wi.gov. You can see where your polling place is, and you can preview your ballot and look up your candidates, because there are quite a few competitive primaries in those as well.
That's right.
Okay.
A lot here in southeastern Wisconsin too. So a lot of those, a lot of state assembly primaries in southeastern Wisconsin. So definitely pay attention to those. You've got the 3rd Congressional District primary for Republican voters. They have the 7th Congressional, and so there's a whole lot up and down the ballot. So yes, be prepared. Go to My Vote. Go to the What's on My Ballot tab and go check that out too. And I want to make one more point on the debate.
Okay, go ahead.
Well, I wanted to talk a little bit about the spin room, because it's an odd experience to be in the spin room. Okay, so tell people what a spin room is. Okay, so at the actual debate, they didn't have anybody in the audience, and that was a choice that WISN 12 made. They didn't want people in there in the audience cheering for various candidates and whatever it might be. And so it was just people in the balcony area among the media. I was sitting, kind of close to a lot of the TV reporters. There was a couple national reporters there. And then after that, they kind of usher all of the candidates away to what they refer to as the spin room. So each candidate has this little setup with like their campaign logo behind them. Kind of looks like a sports press conference. We might have Dr. Lyerly back here, so TBD. But just also on the spin room. So each candidate is there. And so you walk in. Mandela Barnes was the first candidate there. So I went and talked to him first. And then as I turned around, there's just an army of people surrounding Francesca Hong. By far the most media attention. And so, talking to her, there were a couple, the other campaigns were there. A couple of campaign surrogates were walking around, but just this huge amount of attention around Francesca Hong there. But she was also, I would say, she was the first candidate to leave the spin room. She took a bunch of questions right off the bat, and then her campaign team kind of pulled her away. Mandela Barnes was there for a long time. David Crowley was there for a long time. Keldo was the last one there in the room talking to everybody. But it's just an odd experience to go there and see, how these candidates not just respond to the debate, but it's just like, okay, the after the debate and then what's next and then all of that. So I do have some of that I'm going to be sharing at the recombobulation area, a couple video clips. I have some quotes that I don't think have been out there just yet. So a lot of really interesting stuff and just kind of a surreal experience to be, turning around. And I think one of the folks from Francesca Hong's campaign team shared a video of this, of just like the dozens of people that were surrounding Francesca Hong. It's like when they show the press conference in the Packers locker room and everybody is surrounding the quarterback, right? Mm-hmm. And just everybody is looking to her. And then their campaign team panned around the rest and showed just, there were a few people talking to the rest of the candidates there, but so much of the attention for this race and in the spin room and elsewhere was on Hong.
Yeah, and it has been, it will continue to be, especially if she wins the primary. This would be a historic campaign, and all eyes are already on Wisconsin typically, but they will be more so than usual. She has always had an ability to get earned media in the form of stories and people talking about her. And it's an interesting story. So I understand all the reporters around her, and she will give them typically more and not necessarily talking points than the other candidates would. Which I don't know if that has anything to do with why her team pulled her away. Because she was very disciplined up on the debate stage, and then it seemed like a little more forthright in the spin room.
Yeah.
And so, I guess we'll see.
The candidate that I thought seemed the most comfortable in the spin room, and I thought he seemed comfortable on stage throughout the debate too, was Mandela Barnes. And I think it's just the experience that he has had being on a debate stage like that with Ron Johnson in a general election 4 years ago, on that same stage and in that same spin room. And I was there for those events too. He seemed much more comfortable than the other candidates in a lot of ways. Like right before the debate, there's just this odd moment where everybody's very quiet. Even Matt Smith from WISN was even joking. He's like, hey, this is the quietest 2 minutes of the campaign, right before they were about to go live. And before that, as they were setting up and getting the various setups for each different podium, Barnes was kind of cracking jokes and talking to other people on stage, and many of the other candidates were very quiet and reading their notes and very locked in, and Barnes just seemed much more comfortable overall in that type of setting, which I found interesting. And I think it was a good reminder that he was he did really well in the debates against Ron Johnson 4 years ago. Like he was behind by 6 points and was able to, close after those debates. Obviously wasn't ultimately successful in the end, but I thought he won those debates against Johnson. I thought he did pretty well last night.
I agree. I remember him doing well in those debates as well. And I do still remember when somebody asked at the end of one them to say something nice about each other. And Mandela said something like, well, I think he loves his family. He's a good family man, something like that. And Ron Johnson said, well, I just don't understand why he hates America, which is just so classic Ron Johnson. I will just never forget that. But yeah, he did well. He definitely has a lot of experience and national opportunities talking to press and stuff too. So I do think I've seen a lot of growth in him from that perspective. When he's kind of under the gun, he performs really well in a situation like that. But I thought they all did really well. No, but definitely nobody flopped at all. They all seemed well prepared, and I was like having a proud mom moment for everybody. Okay. The polls. How different are the UpNorthNews and I forget everybody else who was involved and the Marquette poll? They seemed kind of similar. And what are the learnings you guys are looking at right now? What's sticking out to you?
The poll that UpNorthNews co-sponsored along with Main Street Action, which is also part of Main Street Alliance, we co-sponsored with a pollster called State Navigate, which has worked in several states, has a little bit of Wisconsin experience, but really wanted to come in and poll in Wisconsin as well. And where Marquette is, and Dan knows the specs on that poll better than I do, but Marquette strikes me as more of your traditional telephone poll. The State Navigate one is much more of a text to internet one. where, again, you have a voter file. Anybody can get the voter file. It doesn't have social security numbers or who you voted for, but it does have, identifying information that you are who you say you are. You send them text, would you like to take a survey? Go to this website. Now, some people try to cheat the system, and they share the link with a whole bunch of other people, which is dumb because it gets caught right away. There's all these other safeguards for that kind of polling. But I will say it's the first time that we had done something like that at Up North News. And so when the numbers came out yesterday showing, Francesca Hong, well above 40%, I was a little nervous. Not sure if the Marquette poll would show that, actually the race has tightened up. But no, I mean, there's two different ways that these polls operate. The first round is, who do you favor? And then a whole lot of people say, I don't know. And then you say to the I don't know people, well, if you had to lean one way or another, how would that go? And in the Up North News State Navigate poll, it went from, Hong getting 42%. And then when you push those people, who are you leaning, it went to 44%. That's pretty big news. Now, Marquette started at 38% for Hong, so I was getting a little nervous there. But when you push the undecideds there, her number grew to 46%. And there were a lot of comparables, not necessarily for David Crowley, but pretty comparable for the other candidates that were in there. So, Dan, two very different types of polls, but I was pleasantly surprised to see that there wasn't a monstrous difference between the two.
Yeah, a lot of similarities between the polls. I think, if anything, the Marquette poll had a little bit stronger numbers for Mandela Barnes overall, especially compared to David Crowley. But overall, very similar results. And yeah, State Navigate, terrific polling outfit there. I have used their data and Chaz Nuttycomb's data for what I refer to as my crazy legislature preview that I do every fall election cycle. So I'm very familiar with their work there. It's very strong data. I didn't doubt that at all. And of course, it lined up with what we're seeing in the Marquette poll. And I think it just goes to demonstrate that Francesca Hong has a huge, huge lead in this poll. And like you said, that it's not just with the undecided voters. It's when Charles Franklin doing, characterizing them as the leaners. So if you see this word out there, the leaners, with those leaners, that Hong has let's see, is it 25-point lead with over Barnes in second place with the leaners?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's going to be,
35 actually.
So I have maybe a dumb question. Are primary leaners a whole different ballgame than general swing voters, or are they the same people?
Yes, because all these people were already essentially pre-qualified as people who were likely to vote in the primary. So these are people that say they're going to vote. They just still don't know. And I do this every time when I'm moderating candidate forums or any other events. I ask for a show of hands. I say, how many of you have your favorite candidate? And a few hands go up. How many of you have got it nailed down to 2 candidates? And a couple of hands go up. How many of you still have no idea? You got 3 or more that you could vote for. And, again, last week when I was down in Monroe and Greene County, again, most of the hands were, I don't know yet. So when Joel Brennan, said near the end of the debate, it was near the beginning of the debate, what are you doing here? Are people wasting their vote? His answer was, well, no. There's a lot of late deciders. There's still, even after pushing the don't know people, in our poll, it went from 22%, I don't know, down to 13, but still 13% don't know. And in the Marquette poll, it started at 34%. Didn't want to give a name. When you pushed them, it went down to 14%. So you're still talking 14% of the people say they're going to vote. They still don't know who they're going to vote for. Kristin, I hope we've got your audio back, because I think that you share my, not frustration, but when you get this close and you go, how do you don't know yet? How do you not have a favorite yet? What's your impression of the people who are still deciding?
Hey, I was watching it along with my OBGYN colleagues last night, and they are engaged and they care, and most of them don't know. They know what they like generally, and they know who they're interested in, but they're not ready to make a commitment, especially in this race where we've had so much chaos and people have turned in their ballots, and their ballots, over 80,000 of them. Some of them cast for candidates who are no longer in the race. So I think even for some people who are paying attention and want to engage, they're holding on to those ballots, waiting to see what's going to happen next in this roller coaster ride of a race.
And may we say, you sound marvelous. It's nice to hear
So,
from
You like my gaming setup?
you. Yes.
yeah, you look cool.
I was going to say, that's
grab
not,
one of
that's not your
Grab one of
gaming
the
chair
guitars,
or
rip
headset.
some Prince. Okay,
Can
so
I make a comment about the debate? Well, first of all,
Yes.
healthcare. How do you
talk
talk
about
for
that.
a third of the debate about healthcare or about taxes and not even bring up healthcare? Like, that to me is crazy, because every single Wisconsinite is a patient, and every single Wisconsinite is struggling to pay for healthcare in one way or another. So that's one piece. Part two is this. I was having this kind of Breakfast Club moment where everybody was kind of fitting into some sort of a high school stereotype. Like, David Crowley was really feeling JV to me last night. Like, he's got potential. He's not quite totally developed. I really love him. I think he does a great job in his current job, but like, he just didn't quite seem ready for the big stage. Kelda was giving total like, girl in the front row, like, I know the answer. And the teacher's like, somebody else, please. Like, do you get that from Kelda?
Yes.
Mandela was
Yeah.
like, he's like he's already got a contract. He is moving on. Always be campaigning, right? That's the mantra. Were you guys getting this kind of a
Look
vibe
at you
from these
casting
folks?
this. I like this.
well,
Were you
I
feeling
wasn't thinking about it that way, but now that you explain it like that, yes, that is 100% accurate, and it is hilarious.
Joel Brennan was
He's
like
the
the
principal.
principal.
He's the
Who was
principal,
like,
Yep.
he's telling you all the stuff that's important, and he's saying like real stuff that you're supposed to know and you're supposed to care about, but you kind of just don't, because other people might be a little more interesting. And then
Somebody
Fran
just
is the
pulled
one-
Fran out of
Fran's-
detention, and she
Fran's
has to
the Ali Sheedy
apologize.
character. Yep. Just chewing her gum and going, whatever. Yes.
Totally.
But she might be making the fist at the end with the hero soundtrack. I don't know. Who knows? Thank you for I'm glad you came back and added that commentary, because that is amazing.
it.
And somebody needs to put together a sort of Breakfast Club edit, I think, out there. who's more
Where's our
talented
AI
than
slop
anyone.
expert? We need one for the show.
Who's the John Hughes of Wisconsin political media edits?
Okay, but so a couple hours ago, I put a question box up in my Instagram stories because we were going to be talking. I'm like, let us know if you have any questions. So I want to go back to what we were just talking about with like the undecided voters. I got a form of this question many times. How do we decide at this point? Do we go with who can beat Tom Tiffany, who I really want, or who I think would do the best job? What's your advice for that? Who wants to jump in first? Who's been doing this for a minute?
I mean, it's an age-old debate. I totally get that. And yet my advice always comes back to vote for the person you want to be governor. I mean, that's what it's there for. To me, it's not that you have to change who you are and what you like before the primary. What it is after the primary, if your person didn't get in, we're not saying you got to fall in love again, but you can't be dumping this person after the primary because they weren't your first choice. And, we're going to use Fran Hong as the example simply because she has this, commanding lead in the polls. But if you're an I don't know person, a Kelda person, a Joel person, a David person, a Mandela person, I mean, it's everything that I would say to everybody who did not show up to vote for Kamala Harris last time. You didn't show up to vote, or you voted independent. Guess what? You voted for Trump. You want to get offended at that? Fine, get offended. But you voted for Trump because you didn't show up to not vote for him. And that's exactly what you're going to get with Tom Tiffany. So after the primary, we're all going to try to be nice to you and say, come on, go ahead and vote. I'm going to be the one to say, grow the hell up. And be sure you show up and bring a friend for this candidate who wasn't your first choice. But for the primary, by all means, vote for who you want. That's what it's there for. I don't know. Anybody feel differently?
Well, I think the old adage about this is in the primary you vote your heart, and in the general you vote with your head. But I think you got it. It's both in both.
This situation's a little different too.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people are seeing the establishment or whoever concerned about this other path that like is not historically a path we've gone down. And so they're almost just a little more nervous this time.
But ask yourself why. Why are we going down this path? And that's where you have to, even if you're not, a Hong head, that's now the third time I've seen that word used someplace.
How about
Even if you're not-
frenetics?
Oh, I like that. You have to ask yourself why. And you can't go with the, well, libtard socialists just like to get free stuff. No, that's not what it is. It's a whole lot of people who, yes, like Mom Donnie and other candidates, they're just so sick of this current system. They're just sick of it. And I think I said this last time as well. These were people that went for Trump, except that, Trump never had any intention of delivering, whereas Mom Donnie's already delivering. And Hong would work to deliver change. People are just so sick of the status quo that, if you think Hong is a little too risky, I get that. Totally get it. But that this many people are drawn to her already, ask yourself why and see if you can't get behind that for at least one election cycle.
And remember, we have gone down this path before. I'm coming to you from River West, a neighborhood in Milwaukee that is the heart of socialism. Wisconsin is an incredibly progressive state by our roots, and Milwaukee has had socialist mayors. That's part of the reason that Milwaukee is the city that it is. So there is room for this. We are those people. We may not feel like it, and we've been under this Scott Walker haze for a couple decades now, but that's not really who we are. So ultimately, Pat, to your point earlier, like whatever happens with the primary happens, and I think we're starting to see the writing on the wall, but when the primary is over, it is full speed ahead for the people of Wisconsin, and the decision couldn't be clearer. Tom Tiffany isn't even a real human. He is just a mouthpiece for Donald Trump. Fran is a real person who has been living and breathing real Wisconsinites' experiences from the very beginning. Look back at the stuff from the beginning of her campaign. I interviewed her right after she entered the race. We called it the wild card. She talked freely, and she continues to speak freely. She hasn't changed her rhetoric. She's maybe toned it down a little bit. She's softened it a little bit, but I don't think anything about Fran has changed. She could absolutely do this job if we give her the chance.
Oh no, Kate, we've entered a minefield. Because I interviewed Fran yesterday, and I gave her the news about how big her poll lead was. And I mean, she gave a very genuine reaction. She was not expecting to hear that.
Yeah.
But then she gave a Dan Shafer shout out. She said, from the time I was given this wild card label, and now I hear Kristin referring to her as the wild card, I think we might have started some beef here between Kristin and Dan, who used wild card first, describing Francesca Hong. Fight it out, kids.
Oh,
so
gonna look back.
I wrote this piece last year. It was called "The Too Early Preview of the Democratic governor's race" that I wrote in August of 2025, and I referred to Francesca Hong as the wild card in the race at that point, and I've used that repeatedly throughout the race.
Trademarked it.
I should have trademarked it, I guess, but I think she really embraced that, and I think it is. I think the wild card moniker was just like, we don't know what's going to happen with this, but I also know that from her service industry background and all of that, she's not going to let anybody else outwork her on the course of the campaign. And I think that has really been what has separated her from the rest of the field, is the ground game. I think in many ways, if she does win this campaign, I think she will have won it between April and June. Because there were so many candidates that I was waiting, after the spring election. I understood why a lot of these candidates weren't going to muddy the waters and go up with ads. Let's make sure Chris Taylor gets over the finish line and then we'll hit the gas. Well, the only person who really hit the gas was Francesca Hong. And I think a lot of these candidates were just waiting and waiting for the right time to put their TV ad up, or the right time for this, the right time for that. Meanwhile, Fran's building this statewide army of volunteers. I think she said last night in the press scrum that it was like 7,000 volunteers that they have engaged with on the campaign. They have really prioritized the ground game. They haven't cared nearly as much about the traditional TV ads, and they have just upended the way that you campaign. So I am not a Democratic socialist. She is comfortably to the left of me politically, but I also hate the traditional way that Democrats do things in these politics. And she has just flipped the table on this and just run circles around everybody else. And while everybody was waiting for the right time to do something, she was out hustling everybody between I would say, April 8th, the day after the spring election, and mid-June when the state party convention happened. And I think we really got into the silly season of this campaign. I think that would be the time that she won this, if she does eventually win this, which she is the clear favorite, and that is where we
Yeah.
are.
It's been interesting to see even Republican rhetoric complimenting her campaign style pretty frequently this whole time, too. Obviously, they don't agree with her policies, but they also have recognized this whole time that she's been out there hustling. She's clearly doing things differently than everybody else. And I mean, it's definitely paid off so far. The one thing that could be really different, I think, if she is in the general, is the amount of millions pouring in from out of state. We already know there's a ton of billionaire money pouring into what's his name? Tom Tiffany.
And the Republican Governors Association.
Yeah, yes. It could look different for Francesca Hong. I'm not sure. How much do you think, though, that would impact her campaign?
The billionaires are going to spend against her? I mean, that's just the default. And I think that's why part of her appeal is she came out swinging against, billionaires and corporate money and all of the other things that are rigging the system against all the rest of us. And she found a way to put it into plain English. So, I mean, she will not be in any way, shape, or form caught off guard by what comes. I think some people were caught off guard by, how it happened to Mandela Barnes in 2022, and that they didn't expect the billionaire money to be so overtly racist. I mean, just over the top. And guess what, kids? It worked. It worked just enough, and that's all it needed to do. So, yeah, they're going to try that again with Francesca Hong, but I mean, she knows that going in. The voters will have seen all of these things going in. It really is going to be a case of fear versus frustration. Okay. Francesca's going to be campaigning on frustration. We're all frustrated with the system. And Tiffany and the Republicans, they're going to campaign on fear. That's all they ever do. Fran is the other. Okay. She's a daughter of Wisconsin, but because she's a daughter of immigrants, she's another. Tom Tiffany is a real Wisconsin guy. When he was born in Minnesota, he is as fake as it gets, but that's what the message is going to be. And I think Fran's going to be well positioned for it.
You kind of sound like you've already moved on, Pat.
From the primary?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I can do this with any of the others. I mean, face it, any Democrat that wins this is going to be called a communist and a Marxist and
well, that's
and everything
the thing
else.
Too. They're going to say, I just want everybody to, if they feel like they're trying to be all strategic about their vote, I feel like people at this point should feel that they have the permission to vote for the candidate that is the most inspiring to them, that they believe can move this state forward. Because I think they've all proven that anybody can do it. She definitely was a wild card in the beginning, but hopefully she has proved to everybody by this point that she's not fucking around, and anybody could easily, maybe not easily, anybody could beat Tom Tiffany. And here in Wisconsin, it's going to be close either way. This is, everybody soak up the polls now because they actually mean something now. When we move to the general, I fear the meaning of the polls matters much less. Is that correct?
To a certain extent, but also I want to look back to that 2022 race with Barnes too, because he came out of that primary, the field consolidated around him. The final 2 weeks of that primary were just a primary in name only. He had won. And he came out of that, and there was a Marquette poll in mid-August, right after that, and he had a pretty significant lead in the head-to-head polling against Ron Johnson. But then the onslaught of ads came, and then the outside spending from the U'Lines and the Hendricks and all the unbelievably racist ads that we saw over the course of that campaign.
That was right after the primary.
That was right after. Right. And so I would expect that the Tiffany camp is ready to go, the U'Line and Hendricks money, the three billionaires in a trench coat that are the Republican, that is the Republican fundraising apparatus, is going to be ready to go. But I want to point out one thing that I think is going to be really interesting here, and we saw it in the crosstabs of both the State Navigate poll and the Marquette poll. And I'm looking at the Marquette poll numbers right now. And we saw this in the head-to-head polling that they had last time. They didn't have any head-to-head polling in this one because it was only of Democratic primary voters. There's a huge generation gap going on in this election. We saw that in the head-to-heads, and we're seeing that with Francesca Hong's numbers here. She has 66% of the vote in the 18 to 29 age group. She has 51% in the 30 to 44 age group. No other candidate is in double digits with anyone under 45.
Wait, say that again. Just the last part. No, just the last part. Just for emphasis, because that's really crazy that
there is
no other candidate
in the primary field. Not Mandela Barnes, not Joel Brennan, not David Crowley, not Kelda Royce. None of them are even in double digits in the 18 to 29-year-old age group or the 30 to 44-year-old age group.
What about the older than 44-year-old age group?
That's
Those are the people I worry about, because they may not be answering their phones and doing these polls, but I can tell you they get out and vote, and they're my neighbors.
They
got that TV on all the time for background noise. We do know that. So they're seeing all those commercials.
Every one of the Tiffany ads. And yep, John Erpenbach, again, love to talk about the little old ladies who got nothing better to do than go down and vote.
Mm-hmm. So in the 60-plus age group, Francesca Hong is not leading among the primary field, even as she has this commanding lead overall. So in the 60-plus age group, Mandela Barnes is 24, Hong 14, Crowley 9, Royce 5, Brennan 3, with 46% undecided. This is before the push, the leaners.
So
part
everybody
of the poll.
call your parents and your grandparents, I guess. Make sure
Kate, you first.
see if they need some help.
Yeah, and
I will. I'm
think
going to call my grandpa.
You know, I did that podcast with Chaz Nuttycombe from State Navigate yesterday. He thinks the primary is over. Franklin cautioned a little bit against that because of the undecided. It's in the 60-plus age group. Because I think, in terms of just like sample size, that might be the largest age group in Wisconsin. We have an aging population in this state. This is a group that votes more reliably than the 18 to 29-year-olds by far. So I think, obviously Hong has a huge lead, but if there is a path for another candidate, that's the path with moderate voters who are over 60.
Well, I can't wait to see the photos coming out of the other campaigns in the next couple days then. Maybe they'll be serving up some soft serve at... I'm just kidding. I'm going to get myself into trouble. That is very good insight, though. And I guess we'll see what happens. What do you guys think comes next? Kristin, what do you think comes next after this? What's going to happen in the next couple weeks?
It's going to be a lot of hand-wringing and conversations and rehashing information. There may be more surprises around the corner. This race has been really unpredictable. I'll remind you again, just a few weeks ago, we were all like, we've got 7 candidates here. Something has to change. And then the whole thing blew up. So I think it's hard to say, but I would encourage everyone to have those conversations, to get out and talk about who these candidates are, what it means to you, and then what happens after the primary and how do we move forward. There's not a lot of time there. And whoever we end up electing to represent Democrats, we are going to need to move forward quickly and decisively. So get ready for that because it's right around the corner.
What do you think, Pat?
August 12th. Yep.
Yeah. Big change, August 12th, shift gears.
Election day is August 11th.
Yeah.
Just so everybody knows.
Yeah, that we're saying August 11th, Go vote, make a plan, early vote. Don't vote too early now. Anything could happen.
Yeah, any other predictions from Pat or Dan on anything else that might,
fear.
Any curveballs?
Fear. I predict fear on my part for the 3rd congressional district race. It has not been a pleasant primary yet again. In the 3rd congressional district, whether it will be Becca Cook or Emily Berge. And I distinctly recall last time around with, again, the Becca Cook people and the Katrina Shanklin people saying, look, whichever one comes out, you gotta go to the mats for this other person. And it sure didn't feel like it. And I say this all not to create some kind of self-fulfilling prophecy, but to again say after this primary, same goes for places like the 17th Senate District, where, Howard Markline is extremely vulnerable, but you've got 3 Democratic candidates in there. You've got a lot of resentment that the State Senate Democratic Committee put forward a candidate and essentially anointed that person, Representative Jenna Jacobson, when, Lisa White and Corrine Hendrickson certainly have, valid reasons to run for that seat as well. And so, I hope that between now and the primary, things don't get even more negative because all of those seats we spend all this time talking about the governor, but those seats are extremely important too. And people are going to need to come together when this is all done, and not just grudgingly so, but to say, all right, you got to put that behind you. Game on. There's a binary choice here. It's this person or it's the Republican, and it shouldn't be that difficult.
Yeah,
I have a question for you, since I was in Eau Claire over the weekend with that event with Ben Wickler.
Right.
So there were a lot of Emily Berge signs around Eau Claire and all of that. But I was thinking about this race, and one of the complaints that folks had in previous election cycles in those 3rd congressional district races was the lack of national support. Right. I think we saw it most starkly in 2022 when Van Orden first won in that race against Brad Pfaff. The national Dems were nowhere to be found. They
were in the beginning, and then, as they always do, because they did the same thing with me back in 2012, when they feel like the money's starting to run out, so we got to consolidate and we got to cut some people loose. They cut some people loose. They cut Brad Pfaff loose, and then you saw the ultimate margin was, I don't remember what it was now, but it was stupidly close, and who knows what could have happened if the national groups hadn't pulled out the way that they did. And that same thing may have happened to Becca Cook 2 years ago. This time around, again, I feel like the DCCC and other organizations will stick with the nominee, whoever it is. But that also feels like Lucy and holding the football for Charlie Brown. So I'm not going to bet the farm on it.
But it seems like, okay, I guess I don't understand this, because it seems like people were upset that the national groups didn't get involved then. They got involved with Cook from the jump this time, and people seem to be still upset about that.
Well, they're upset about that because they feel it's putting their thumb on the scale, and
because
they don't.
I get that. Yeah. We've talked about where the national group should be, just like the state party. Where should they be right now? Not anointing somebody, but they should be going after Tom Tiffany and Derek Van Orden relentlessly. They should be waking up every day just dreading turning on the TV for what's going to be said about them. And instead, they're out there pushing a candidate in the primaries and then probably pulling out too soon after the general. So the problem with these party groups, state party, national party, is essentially they don't know their place. Your place is to pummel the Republican before the primary, and then whoever the nominee is, get fully behind them afterwards. I don't know why that's so hard.
Yeah.
Fair point.
I mean, I don't know what the right answer is. It seems like the state parties and like D-Trip and all those do more work in support of a candidates, and then there's different independent groups who do more of the like opposition type messaging. And I know there's been plenty of DVO opposition, probably not for lack of material. There's a lot of stuff there. Those two races are ones I actually have endorsed in, and in one of them I endorsed the establishment candidate, and the other one it's the non-establishment candidate. I've endorsed Karine Hendrickson in the 17th. I think she's just a fantastic fighter who is so smart and so strategic and would be amazing to go up against Mark Line. And in the third, much to what the internet would like to tell me they feel is correct, I have endorsed Rebecca Cook, and I've known her for a couple cycles now. I also understand, I've met Emily Berge too, and I think she's great. And I'm so glad she's in this race and she stayed in this race. I think she's made it better. I'm all for competitive primaries. I think it makes everybody better. And I understand people wanting a more progressive person to represent them, like Berge. She has great experience, but I trust Rebecca Cook too. And I think, she outperformed Harris and Baldwin last time and got closer and closer. And I think she can do it. So.
Yeah, and that's all I'm saying is that either one of these candidates would be so much better, and we just need the people who are on the losing end of this particular primary battle to try to get it behind you as quick as you can, and not worry about what's in the past. For example, in the comments section, Kirby Dog 13 says justice for Pat and Brad. Well, thank you, but our races are over. It is what it is. We've got to move on. We've got to move forward. Kirby Dog 13. Is that my mom?
Is anybody else saying anything? I didn't know we were getting live comments.
Oh yeah, Jim in Appleton says hi, Kristen. So one of the radio show listeners. Oh yeah,
is my dad there?
What's his screen name?
I don't know.
Oh, okay.
I don't know.
Uh,
Probably like
can I just
Biker
mention-
Dad 47.
I'm just realizing that we have access to the chat right now.
Sorry,
So-
everyone.
Ben
Oh, we'll
Wickler is
do
doing
more.
this giant book tour, and he is like Wisconsin's biggest cheerleader. And
Mhm.
his entire point, this whole book that he's written, everything he's doing with civic media and all of these appearances he's making all across the country are all about one thing: coming together and reclaiming our state, reclaiming our country for Americans, for Wisconsinites. And Pat, it's what you said earlier. We have to put our divisions aside, regardless of who we're supporting, and we have to unify. And if we don't do that, we lose it all. So ultimately, if we take nothing else out of this time we spent together today, we're all on the same team. Let's fucking do this, right?
Amen.
Goddamn right. Let's go.
Yes, and we will all be on the same team. But yeah, for the next couple weeks, it might still be a little interesting. Dan
It
Bice
will
would have
be.
really
That's why
loved
we're
this
here.
cycle.
Mm-hmm.
Any closing thoughts? I'm sure we'll regroup again next week, a week out from the election. But any
What are we going
thoughts
to talk
until then?
about?
There always seems to be something, and that's why, folks got to go over to Up North News. They got to go to the recombobulation area. They got to go to Motherhood for Good. They got to go to Dr. Kristin Lyerly on all of the platforms. She's on platforms that haven't been invented yet, for God's sakes.
Even LinkedIn.
I know, and I'm
Ugh.
I'm glad that we managed to get these
Wait.
4 media forces together. Even LinkedIn.
I love Kate's reaction to even LinkedIn.
I mean, LinkedIn is the bad place to me.
It is.
But people
You got to
love
be
it.
everywhere. Yep.
I did want to plug really quick though. If you go to sway.co/motherhood for good, I don't know if you guys have a Sway page. That's
What?
where I'm putting
Yeah.
all my endorsements, and so you can see them all there. And if you can connect it to the voter file too, so you can actually get a personalized ballot. And there's a bunch of different like civic leaders and other people on there who have their own Sway pages, so you can just see people's recommendations, and it's a pretty cool tool if you're still struggling with who to vote for, especially for some of those down ballot races.
Well, look
So,
at this. How cool is this? Wow.
I know.
I learned stuff.
It's super cool. The people who built it are awesome. They're actually like tech people who really care about politics as opposed to the other way around. Because when I first came into this, I'm like, why do the tech options kind of suck? So I think this is a cool tool that hopefully makes it easier for people.
I'm
But
gonna go back.
do your own research as well.
I'm gonna go back and listen to my
Unless
8-track player. Old
You're
tech.
looking for medical information, then don't do your own research.
Yes, please don't use Dr. Google. No.
And for the people who have done so much research with this race, just go with your gut. But vote.
Yes, definitely vote.
Polls don't vote, people vote. That was
That's
Charles
right.
Franklin's closing message at the. It always is in his final, pre-election poll. Polls don't vote, people vote, and he's like, don't let me tell you who to vote for. Look inside your heart. That's what he said.
my
I
God.
loved that message.
Yes.
Did he say who he's voting for? Do we know who he's voting for?
No, he would never.
No,
he would never.
You would
No.
never.
Mm-mm.
But do make a plan because it's confusing. And you want to make sure you have the right documentation, you know what the hours are, all of those things. Get
and that
ready.
you're voting in the right party. You can only vote in one party's primary, which I know for some people it sucks. Like here in Chippewa County, it's the Republican primary that determines who's the sheriff. And there's people that really want us to have a say in that. And they almost like ask permission. And I'm like, go ahead. Don't worry. The Democratic nominee for governor will be fine no matter what. If you feel like you got to vote in that Republican primary so you know who your sheriff is, then go do it. But you got to have a plan and you got to follow the rules so that your vote counts.
And if you have made a bet on any of these candidates on any of the betting
What
platforms,
are you doing?
technically you can't vote for them also. I'm just
By the
saying
way,
legally.
And Fran is running away with it on Polly Market and Calfee. She's in the
Oh my God, here
90th.
comes- I shouldn't have opened that
So
can of
she
worms.
should
We got
not.
Lyerly
She
over here.
is. She is.
Do we
I'm
need to
just
ask her
saying,
if
it's
she's
a
made any
prediction
bets
market.
on here?
Next
She's
week we're
pretty
going to
much
see
a
her little
Kelsey
Kelsey patch on her
spokesperson.
shirt, like she's sponsored by.
Google just brings it right up for me. I type in a P and it just opens it all up for me.
Okay, well, this has been fun group chat. I hope Steve Scafidi liked this one. We wish him
Do
well
you?
for sure.
That's
We
nice
sure,
of you.
we're sending our
Well,
thoughts and prayers to
Steve.
him as we get through, as he sees the primary results. But Maybe
well,
we can
join
invite
us.
him on.
we're all
Yeah.
clamoring
I've
to
been doing
we're all
influencer.
clamoring to hear from the Nikki Haley, Josh Schumann voters to see what's going to happen in this election.
Well, this has been
Yeah.
fun. Thank you for joining us, everyone, and we'll talk to you next week.
Thank you.
Thanks,
See ya.
everybody.